Hello and welcome to a new Axelent safety webinar. This time we deal with an important workplace safety topic, on-site traffic. Almost everywhere in the industry, workers are exposed to hazards from industrial trucks and other vehicles. An industrial truck may crash into a person and seriously injure or kill him. More frequently, industrial trucks crash into costly equipment and infrastructures, causing severe damage. But there's good news too. Industrial barriers can help ensure traffic safety. In this webinar, we will discuss 4 topics. Why on-site traffic safety is an important issue, how to protect pedestrians, how to protect sensitive or costly equipment, and ways to perform traffic risk assessment. Why should you be interested in this topic? Because it is a major cause of accidents in the workplace. In 2020, 13,689 accidents with industrial trucks and other vehicles occurred. Of these, 7 were fatal. In 216 cases, the injuries were so serious that the victims now receive a workers' accident pension. And these are the accident figures for just one country in the EU, Germany. Many of these accidents could have been prevented. How? Often employers do what you see in the animation. They try to separate pedestrians from truck traffic by drawing lines on the floor and instructing staff to walk behind the lines. But that often simply is not enough. Occupational safety and health regulations around the world differ. But in all industrialized countries, they require that the employer ensures traffic safety. While this may be achieved by signposting, markings, and instructions, other measures take a higher priority. Generally, one should follow a TOP approach. T, technical, O, organizational, P, personal measures. First, try to reduce the risk by introducing technical measures. Install a guard. Then choose organizational measures. Determine who is qualified to do a potentially dangerous job. Finally, take measures on the personal level. Instruct staff, give them personal protective equipment. Why should you prefer technical solutions over organizational measures and instructions, such as just drawing a line on the floor? On-site traffic safety is a good case to illustrate why the TOP principle makes sense. Just consider for a moment the weaknesses of just drawing a line on the floor to separate people and truck traffic. People may or may not notice the line. 2 people walking together and talking might be distracted so that they don't notice it. A truck driver could ignore the line deliberately or accidentally. So even trained workers might not in time notice the line anymore or deliberately sidestep it. And there's another disadvantage. Lines will wear down with time and become less visible. Thus, there is a much better, a technical solution to separating people and truck traffic. Install pedestrian barriers along walkways. These serve to separate people from trucks physically. If built sufficiently strong, they may even hold the stray truck back. Let's define the term pedestrian barrier to get clear on what these can and cannot do. A pedestrian barrier is a rail or fence preventing people from walking unintentionally into the path of a vehicle. Note the word unintentionally in the definition. It indicates an important limitation of pedestrian barriers. they cannot guarantee there will be no accidents. People can ignore the barrier, take a hazardous route, and still walk in front of a truck. They may also reach over, lean over, or otherwise sidestep a barrier. Some even climb across a rail. But in many, if not most cases, pedestrian barriers will effectively prevent injury to persons. Where should you place pedestrian barriers? Let's briefly look at 4 situations that deserve attention. First and foremost, you will use pedestrian barriers to separate truck passages and pedestrian walkways. When there's a barrier, people cannot accidentally step into the path of trucks. But you will want to avoid forcing people to take long detours. Thus you need openings and crossings. Mark the crossings with the zebra stripes and install self-closing gates that open toward the walkway. The illustration shows the typical elements of such traffic management. One, pedestrian barriers. 2, a crossing with zebra stripes. And 3, gates opening toward the walkway. Another important location to place pedestrian barriers is immediately next to gates or wall openings for truck traffic. Here drivers have difficulty seeing pedestrians and vice versa. The barrier forces the pedestrian to stop walking and look before going on. Normally, people should not use gates or wall openings used by trucks to walk through. When a new building is planned, a separate door for passage of people should always be located next to the gate. When planning for the self-closing gate, ensure it is not in a straight walking line with the door. Otherwise the door and gate may crash into another and a person might get hurt. Also, near truck traffic, you do not want people to run, but take their time to stop and look. One may also try to change the behavior of people using pedestrian barriers. The red line in the illustration shows an undesirable walking line leading right through a high-traffic area. A pedestrian barrier could encourage walkers to avoid that hazardous route and use a safe walkway. The green line shows the new safe walking path behind a pedestrian barrier. A change of behavior can often not be achieved by mere lines on the floor, because they are simply ignored. Finally, pedestrian barriers should also be installed to separate workstations from traffic areas. People working focus on their work, not on traffic. This puts them in danger. A pedestrian barrier will keep workers from unintentionally stepping in the path of a vehicle. Be sure to plan the location for people to enter and leave the work area and add a self-closing gate there. And you may want to add impact protection to keep stray vehicles out. This brings up 2 further questions regarding industrial barriers. Where should self-closing gates be placed in a pedestrian barrier? And where to put impact barriers? If you separate a walkway and a truck aisle by means of a pedestrian barrier, you need a sufficient number of self-closing gates for people to leave the walkway and walk in the hall area. But where to put them? We will find out that if the positions are carefully chosen, they might additionally enhance on-site traffic safety. Self-closing gates should be installed at crossings, at the endpoints of walkways that lead to a hazard zone, and in a barrier around a workplace. In the illustration, stairs are leading onto a shop floor with high truck traffic. In this situation, a pedestrian barrier with self-closing gate would improve safety. You may wonder, why have the gate and not just a gap? The point of the self-closing gate is to slow down walkers before they leave the safe walkway, because they have to stop, pull the gate toward themselves, and only then can walk on. And the gate will also alert them to the fact that they are entering a hazard zone. As we have seen, industrial barriers are used to prevent people from running into vehicles passing. But they can also offer protection in the opposite direction and keep vehicles from crushing into people and things. An impact barrier is a strong protective post or bar that is meant to reduce the likelihood of a vehicle driving off a fixed traffic lane or area and causing damage. In this definition, notice the phrase "reduce the likelihood," which indicates the limitations of impact barriers. Industrial trucks may be loaded or drive a lifted fork. Therefore, there is no guarantee that objects will remain undamaged in case of a crash, even if an impact barrier is installed. But in most cases, the protection will be effective and reduce the likelihood of severe damage or the severity of the damage itself. Where should impact barriers be placed? Such barriers should be installed at the face end of pallet racks or shelves and at the entry points of rack aisles. Note that this is also required in the pallet rack standard EN 15512. It cannot be expected that ordinary pallet racks withstand the impact of heavy loaded industrial trucks. A truck can seriously damage a rack. It may cause loads to fall down or even cause the rack to collapse. If you don't want a truck to crash into a pallet rack, you certainly don't want it to wreck your machinery or other costly infrastructures. Examples of things to protect with impact barriers are firefighting equipment, gas cylinders, control cabinets, pump stations, and many others. In large production facilities, you can often see office booths on shop floors. These should be protected from impact by trucks, especially if there is glazing. Where impact by vehicles must be expected, the glazing should be made of break-resistant safety glass. If sufficient space is available, one should also install low-impact barriers along walls adjacent to truck passages. More and more companies protect the entire inside building perimeter from impact. In high traffic areas, this may soon pay off, as it saves costly wall repairs, during which the passage may have to be closed for traffic. Finally, it is also advisable to protect stacking areas. For one thing, stacked goods are valuable and you will want to avoid damaging them. To make matters worse, goods may tumble to the floor or the stack may topple after a crash. Impact of a truck with stacked goods can thus lead to very bad accidents. In such cases, bystanders may be injured seriously. So far, we've seen a number of applications for pedestrian barriers and impact barriers. In all the situations seen, they can substantially reduce the likeliness of bad accident. But how can you determine where to place pedestrian barriers and impact barriers in your production and storage environments? Around the world, occupational safety and health regulations require that employers perform site-related risk assessment. And traffic safety should be an integral part of such assessments. Therefore, let's now briefly look at how a traffic safety assessment can be done on your site. We encourage companies to assess traffic risks, taking these steps. Prepare floor layouts indicating traffic routes, workplaces, and pedestrian walkways. Check the on-site walkways, observe traffic, and assess the risks. Try to separate traffic routes and pedestrian areas. Take risk reduction measures suitable for the individual situation and degree of risk. Prefer technical solutions over organizational measures and instruction. A line on the floor is for instruction only. You may obtain a sample risk assessment from Axelent. We subdivided it into 3 sections: production sites with moderate truck traffic, storage areas with high truck traffic, and loading areas with truck traffic and fall edges. Start by describing the situation on site. Try to find the hazards. The list of hazards from Annex B1 of ISO 12100 may help. Describe the risk and then discuss suitable measures. Choosing measures, remember to prefer technical solutions over signposting and instruction of staff. If you are not sure what is adequate, you may do a risk estimation, asking what could be the severest injury that might occur and what its probability might be. The higher the risk, the better the measures counteracting it should be. Please note that the risk assessment format shown here may not match exactly what is required or preferred in your country. Thank you for joining this Axelent Safety webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to talk to a member of the Axelent Safety team or send an email to safety@axelent.com. Have a good time and keep your feet safely away from truck traffic. Bye-bye.